Hello fellow orchid lovers, it's Danielle here with a video about my dendrobiums. So as you can see, my collection has grown quite a bit over the past year. So my first dendrobium was this little fellow right here, Dendrobium Green Lantern Red Carpet. So this dendrobium actually is a keiki off of the original plant that I purchased. The original plant that I purchased put off this keiki and then died. So anyways, she's doing really good. Obviously, because this was the keiki, it's not huge, but it's growing its own new growth right now. So it's continuing to prosper. It's got a nice root system. I just watered her, so she's a little damp. But she's doing good. She's going to take quite a while to get to the size where she's going to bloom. But I really love the black hairs on this orchid. I think that they're so cute. And I'm glad that she made it. Sometimes once you separate the keiki from the mother plant, it doesn't necessarily do that well. But she is. So I'm happy about that. The second dendrobium that I got was this one. This is my Dendrobium unicum. So this is a deciduous dendrobium, and she did bloom for me this year, but I'll get back to the deciduous dendrobiums in a minute. I kind of want to go in like group. So these are my Latorias. I have 4 of them. I have microchip, atroviolacea, Nora tucanaga, and green apples. So I have had the atroviolacea for 2 years now. She's great. She doesn't stop growing. She's either putting out new growths or flowers or roots or whatever. 7 spikes this year. I featured her in my last video, and she does have a few little nubs showing, and obviously the 2 new growths. And then my microchip is doing really well too. She also is putting out some spikes. She has like 3 or 4 new growths, new roots. And she's got more than 1 spike coming. There's a couple, but they're tiny, so it's a little difficult to show you. My Nora tucanaga, she also is getting some spikes. She has 1 new growth. And my green apples doesn't have any new growths or any new roots, but it does seem like she's getting some nubs where she may be thinking about giving me flowers. So as you can see, there's a little bit of a pattern with my Latorias. They never stop growing. So I don't technically give them like what you would term any type of rest. I do lower the quantity of water and just water them more frequently because I don't let my house get that cold, but I really don't keep it that warm either. My thermostat is usually set on 62 or 63. I have a problem with getting too hot. It actually makes my illness worse. So I don't like to keep the house really warm. So it does get kind of cool in here, especially at night when the sun goes down and they're close to the window. So I don't like to put a whole lot of water in their vase. So like for instance, you'll see here, this is the microchip. These are the glass beads. Obviously the roots go down into the beads and the water level's right there. So just a very little bit of the root is actually in the water. Most of the plants, I don't like to keep it in the water because the water, obviously sitting next to the window, gets pretty cold, and I don't want it to kill the root system. This is the same method that I used for my atroviolacea the past 2 years, and she's done really, really well. So in the winter, the only change I really do with my Latorias, because they are constant growers, is I just keep the water levels a little lower than I would in the summer when they're really, really thirsty. So that's them. They're doing really good. Looks like I'm going to have some blooms soon, so I'll share them with you. It's probably going to take a couple months for the spikes to completely mature, but when they do, I'll show them to you. So I already showed you the green lantern. This one I bought. It doesn't have a tag. It was a bag baby. There was no tag, but based on the flower, some of my viewers were able to help me identify it. Thank you very much, guys. We believe that it's called Polar Fire, I believe. As you can see, she's dropped some of her leaves. but she is currently pushing out 2 new growths. So I'm continuing to water her as I would, you know, in the summer. I always have water available to her. Like my Latorius, however, I don't have the level very high. I just have like the tips of her roots sitting in it. And I just check more frequently to see if she needs more water. I keep my Cattleyas where my Dendrobiums are because it's my highest source of light, the most light that comes in that window. That's where my Dendrobiums and my Cattleyas are. And my Cattleyas, I water, and then 2 or 3 days later, I dump the water. So when I pull the Cattleyas off the shelf to dump them, I also check the levels in the orchids, the Dendrobiums that I have water always available to make sure that they still have water. Because I don't want them to dry out completely, but I also don't want them to be saturated when it's cold. This one is my Dendrobium Chrysostom. So this one I also don't allow to completely dry out, with the exception of, like, usually the amount of water that I give it by day 6, it's almost dry or completely dry. So if it does dry out, it just dries out for maybe a day and a half. And that seems to be working for her. She's doing pretty good. I have to do a little more research on her before the season advances, because I don't think she's like a full resting type where she needs to be dry for days at a time. I'm pretty sure that she's one of the ones that does appreciate at least a little bit of water throughout the winter. I think that that's the research I did when I first purchased her, but I didn't write it down. So I got to do research again and write it down this time. But other than that, she's doing really good, really green, healthy. I have her in some really strong light and she seems to really love it. So that's her. Getting back to my winter resting Dendrobiums. So this was the Dendrobrium that I actually brought successfully through winter and actually got to bloom. So I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to pull it off because by nature I worry that things don't have enough water, and I've actually killed a few houseplants that way. So it was really hard for me to not water this plant. But what I worked out is, I keep my eye on the pseudobulbs. I make sure that they're not desiccating too much. If they show signs of desiccation, then I know that my watering schedule is too minimal. But so far, I think I figured it out, because last year what I did is every 7th day, so once a week, when I was watering all of my other plants, I would just get the roots nice and wet and then drain it off. So just a little quick drink, drain off the water, and then the roots stay damp for like maybe a day or 2, and then they dry for the rest of the week. And that seems to have worked, because both canes that I grew bloomed. So as you can see, this was the largest cane and it bloomed in several spots. And then the smaller cane, let me see which one it is, because she also had canes. Okay, so this is the other cane. It also bloomed. So she got a small cane and a very large cane in my care last year, and both of them bloomed. And then this year, again, she grew a small cane and a very large cane. And I'm going to do the same routine with her, where I give her a drink, and then I drain off the water after like letting her sit for a minute or 2 for the roots to get saturated. I drain off the water, and then she doesn't get watered again for another week. So by the time the week passes by, she's bone dry. And like I said, it got her to bloom last time, so that's what I'm going to do this time. And actually, something that I noticed last year that I am noticing again this year is the places that she would bloom, they have little nubs. And I did notice last year that those nubs manifested themselves early on. And then that's where she bloomed from. So the fact that she is showing those little nubs, I'm taking as an encouraging sign that she might bloom for me again. So that's what I'm doing with her. Now, I have one other true winter resting type, I think, although it's a hybrid. So I'm kind of being a little more organic and forgiving with this one. This is a nobly. This is Dendrobrium Asian Beauty Eden. And I've never had a nobly before. You know, up until last year, I never had any dendrobiums because the winter rest thing scared the beans out of me, and I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to make them happy. Once I succeeded with this one, then I decided I could maybe take on a few more. So she came to me really badly infested with spider mites. Bad. Like really bad. As you can see, some of her leaves show signs of the spider mites. I was able to get rid of the spider mites, I feel. I check for them obsessively. And what I did was I made a water solution with dish soap and alcohol. And I just, you know, sprayed the heck out of it, got them absolutely drenched, and let them sit like that for like an hour. And then I went back in with warm water and I washed everything off. So basically the plant was actually like suffocated for about an hour. All of its pores were clogged with the solution, and the idea behind is it, in addition to suffocating the plant, it's suffocating the spider mites, and it does seem to have worked. Some of the more injured leaves have fallen off. They turned yellow and fell off, but a lot of the ones that are less injured by the mites just kind of turned a little black, and hopefully they're gone. I didn't notice them on any of my other plants, so it doesn't look like they spread. Her new growths continued to grow. Like this new growth is pretty chunky and pretty big, bigger than the cane that it came with. So I'm pretty happy about that. So again, with this one, I'm kind of doing similar to my other deciduous dendrobium. Every week I'm giving it a nice drink, and then I'm kind of letting it just dry out. Noblies, like the species noblies, typically do need a true winter rest. This is a hybrid, so I'm not sure how much of a winter rest it really needs, if indeed it needs any winter rest. But I want to err on the side of caution and slow down my watering with this orchid so that I won't prevent it from blooming. I know some people have noblies that are hybrids and they don't give them a winter rest at all. I am keeping a very close eye on what this winter rest is doing to this orchid. I didn't start putting her into a rest until she got her terminal leaf. If she was still growing, I would still be feeding her like I'm feeding the rest of my orchids, but she's not. She stopped growing. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. So we'll see how that works out with this. If she doesn't bloom this year, then potentially she doesn't need that winter rest. But if I see any signs of like major desiccation with the old canes, I will change and go back to just watering her regularly. But so far, so good. I don't really see any major issues with what I've been doing with her. And I've been doing the rest for a couple of weeks now. Two more of my orchids that maybe don't technically need a winter rest. Again, I have to do some research. This one I put into a winter rest just because the root system is so bad, and some of her canes rotted on me. So because her roots are so like, she doesn't have any roots basically, and I don't even think that those roots are viable. I kind of just put her into a little bit of a rest. I cut off the canes that were rotting. As you can see, there's a little bit of the cane left there. And basically, I just dampen her roots and I put her back in her vase. She doesn't really get water. And in a couple of days, I'll check. And if her roots are completely dried out, I'll give her another little dose. But I am worried about, the rotting situation. If there's a fungus present and I keep her damp, it's just going to make the fungus go crazy. So I'm keeping my eye on her. I don't think she technically needs a winter rest. This is Firewings. But because of the rotting issue, I'm kind of putting her into a little bit of a rest. I am watching her canes as well to make sure she doesn't get desiccated. She has a lot of strength in these canes, so I think she has some reserves. I just really want to get her past this root situation. I want to see her start a new growth, start some new roots, and then, you know, I'll consider taking her and giving her a little more access to water. And then the other one that I'm not really resting is, where's her tag? My Spectacebal. So she's a little bit of a puzzle to me because she has all these smaller growths and then boom, she's got like this one huge cane. And the cane itself obviously has never bloomed before, and where the nodes are that she would have bloomed from are all black. So I don't know how she's doing. I am, you know, keeping her with a little bit of access to water at all times. Not a crazy amount, just a little bit, and I do check her. But she's a little bit of a puzzle to me. I don't see any signs of new growths. I've had her since June. And I'm just worried that there's something not quite right with this plant. I was so excited when I went to the orchid show in June to see some of these orchids that I didn't notice the spider mites on the Nobile. I didn't notice some things. I lost a fair amount of the plants that I purchased because they were junk, basically. I bought a couple Miltonias. They were all infected with Fusarium. I've lost some of them. I'm going to be a lot more careful next time that I go to an orchid show. But with this one, I don't know. She's a little puzzling to me. She's got this huge cane. All the other ones are so much smaller. She's never bloomed. No new growths. Roots are good. She's getting new roots. But that's about it. That's the only change on this orchid. And I've had her since June. So, I don't know. If you guys have any pointers on, you know, that particular orchid, definitely let me know. But yeah, so those are my dendrobiums. That's my plan for the winter. So like I said, I did get this one, my other deciduous orchid, to bloom. So I'm hoping with the Nobile, it'll be a similar case. My Latorias and all the other types of dendrobiums that aren't true winter resting, I definitely give them less water, but I'm not completely giving them no water at all. And I don't actually, I know some people with their winter resting dendrobiums, they don't give their dendrobiums water for quite a while. I don't subscribe to that, personally. And my Dendrobium unicum bloomed for me. So I think that the method that I'm using for my situation, it actually does work. I did improve their light levels. So I cut back on their water and I'm giving them more light. So they are in a window that gets most of the light. I mean, not today because it's really gray and yucky out, but for the most part, the window that they are in gets a decent amount of light during the day. I am not using my grow light this year, and I'm not going to set it up. I thought there for a moment that I might try, but I decided not to. My husband and I are probably going to be moving early in the spring. We're probably going to be buying a new house and moving. So to set up the grow light and keep an eye on it and put it on a timer, and my neighbors probably think I'm growing something illegal because the grow light is like that pink light that people use when they're growing something illegal. So, yeah, I'm just not going to bother with it this year, and hopefully it doesn't affect my orchids. But if it does and some of them don't bloom, you know, it's a price I'll pay. It's just easier for me not to use it this year and not set it up. And then, you know, hopefully once we move in the spring, maybe next winter, I will use it. But anyways, if you have any questions or you have any pointers, I am definitely always open to questions and pointers. So definitely put them in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being patient with my hiatus from YouTube. I am going to definitely try to start posting more frequently. And if there are any particular types of orchids that you would like me to update you on, let me know. And I will talk to you guys next time.